Hello, friends. Hello, new friends. Hello, old friends. I am so happy that you are here. I'm thrilled about this gathering. It feels the sun just came out in Los Angeles, and it feels just like the right moment as we begin December 1st, as we begin the holidays, to plunge into a bit of radical self care. So, I want to just get us going here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually share my screen with you. I'm going to start that right now. And you should start to see a picture of me, hopefully. And you should start to see my screen. I will not stay in video the whole time because after doing some testing, I've been discovering that for some of you, I will show up kind of slow and freeze now and then. And for some of you, there will not be a delay. But I just wanted to greet you face to face. I wish I could see all of you, but I wanted to give you a chance to see me. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So many of you I don't know, and it's such a pleasure to uh, feel that, to feel into this whole lovely, gorgeous circle of people out there that are starting to resonate and starting to be curious about astrology and also are interested in taking deeper care of themselves, of yourselves. So a couple things just to put us at ease. Webinars can be strange and technical things can abound. So, um, on your little webinar screen off on the side, there should be a place that you can raise your hand and ask a question. If I'm not going to answer a ton of questions because there's so many of you out there and we have so much to cover. But I will be stopping now and again to see if there are questions. So definitely raise your hand if you have a question and I will get to you when I can. If I do not get to you, don't worry. I am a person that responds to need. So if you have questions afterwards, if you get lost and feel like, I don't know, what is she talking about? And start to lose it a little, which I have been known to do in webinars, just take a deep breath. Just keep breathing, keep looking over your papers, keep seeing if you can understand it. And I'm happy to answer questions after the webinar if there are questions that were not answered or if you got lost. So you can email me. I am available. So let me see if there's anything else like technically that you need to know. If for some reason I disappeared, just stay on the line. There are my wonderful assistant is online and she will hold the fort until I came back if anything were to happen. So I think that's all the technical aspect. All right. So what I would like to actually tell you about is that this morning, as I'm preparing for webinars, as I'm preparing for classes, as I'm preparing for retreats, there's always an amazing experience of building up to it. And I've begun to trust more and more and more that there are moments right at the very end where something enters, where there's a moment where I say, oh, this is the last piece. This is what I need to know. And I woke up at 5:30 this morning and I was like, okay, I'll have 45 minutes before the kids wake up. And I just grabbed a book off my shelf. And I know that some of you come from, I know that some of you are coming from Danielle Laporte, found me through her, she's a wonderful woman, is she not? But she recommended this book to me, and I think some of you know it, The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. And I grabbed it off the shelf, and I thought, I'm just going to open it. And, well, what a beautiful thing, right? The universe always provides when we ask. And, this workshop, this webinar is called The Astrology of Self-Compassion and Love-Fueled Action. Yeah. And so I opened it to November 25th, which was not so very long ago. And it was called Compassion. I was going to read December 1st, but instead it flipped open to that. So I was going to read that and here it presented itself. And it started out with a quote. And it says, I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, compassion. These are the greatest treasures. Compassionate towards yourself, you reconcile all beings in the world. That's Lao Tzu. And I'm just going to read you a little bit about what Mark Nepo said about it, because this is what this whole webinar is about. How can we be compassionate with ourselves? How can we have a more radical self-care so that we can actually give what we're meant to give in the world, so that we can take action that is love fueled and not exhaustion fueled, and not, frustration fueled, and not stress fueled, and not caffeinated fueled, So he says, and it's quite beautiful, he says, at first we might ask, how can being compassionate to yourself reconcile all beings in the world? To understand the gift of this, we need to recall the analogy of the spoked wheel. Now, isn't that beautiful? Because the spoked wheel is, of course, the astrological chart. We need to recall the analogy of the spoked wheel, in which each life is a separate and unique spoke, and yet all lives, like those spokes, meet in a common hub or center. That's why when we tend our deepest center, we care for all souls. When we tend our deepest center, we care for all souls. And this is certainly what I am attempting to learn. This is certainly what I assume many of you are attempting to learn, that as we fill our cup, we are pouring forth our nourishment. We are pouring forth our love-fueled action to others. Let me just read you a little bit more. He says, another powerful way to realize our interconnectedness is to imagine the human family as a stand of aspens growing by a river. Though each tree appears to be growing independently, not attached to the others, beneath the soil, out of view, the roots of all the trees exist as one enormous root. And so, like these trees, our soul's growth, while appearing to be independent, is intimately connected to the health of those around us. For our spirits are entwined at center, out of view. Once realizing this, it becomes clear that we have no choice but to embrace the health of our neighbors as part of our own health. And he was a cancer survivor, and he says, I felt this deeply in many of the cancer rooms I sat in. I know these things to be true. In cutting off strangers, we cut off ourselves. In choking roots, we choke our own growth. In loving strangers, hello, love, we love ourselves. Having come this far, I believe that Lao Tzu's third instruction, compassion, tells us that if we are aware of our own suffering with the wish to relieve it, and we're going to talk so much about that today, we will overcome distrust and reestablish a close relationship with all living things. In deep and lasting ways, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. For as the body is only as healthy as its individual cells, the world is only healthy as its individual souls. Across the centuries, we have this timeless medicine. Live directly, wait, and care for your soul as if it were the world. Okay, I had to read it all. He's wonderful. He has a offering every day, and to me, we could sit here and we could simply say, yes, simplicity, patience, compassion. And the reason why I love astrology is because I think built into astrology is compassion itself. Because as we come to know ourselves, as we come to know our quirks, our insecurities, our fears, our loves, our yearnings, we come to know what we want to do in the world and what stands in the way. And then we start looking out and we say, everybody has that going on, and wells of compassion can come forth because we recognize we're all stuck. We all have this wretchedness. We're all trying to be love, and we all keep coming up against the darkness, and we come up against it in all our many textures, and astrology reveals that. Astrology reveals the many textures of our gifts and our greatest tests. And as we study that, we come to know ourselves, we come to know one another, and we breathe a great sigh of relief because we realize we're all just journeying together doing the best we can with our eye on a goal, with intention strong. And we can laugh, we can have some humor, we can have some grace, we can have some softness, we can have some relief from a kind of constant barrage of not enough, not soon enough, not quick enough, not big enough. Yeah. So I do want to use that as a little launching pad and just say, let's take a look at this moment as this webinar is getting underway. And so I'm going to move that over. This is a chart. What you're looking at now is a chart of this moment. It's 10 minutes ago, 11 a.m. And, some of you don't know astrology at all. Beautiful. And some of you have been studying it for years. Beautiful. We're all meeting together. We're all going to help one another. This is a two-dimensional picture of the heavens as they were 10 minutes ago at 11 a.m. in Glendale, California. And this is where all the planets were landing in relationship to one another. And just to quickly break it down, each of these little chunks is an area of the heavens. And we will go into that in more depth later. But just so you know, it's important where each little planet lands in which area of the heavens. So I'm going to start to just talk to you in very much the language of astrology about this moment in time. Don't worry so much about like, oh my gosh, I have to learn this. This is more, I'm going to speak to you in another language of, that hopefully will reveal, that will be a metaphor for this moment. So I want to point a couple things out that are really in our favor as we are speaking about this. And, this is a moment in time. This is a birth. This is you showing up for this webinar is a seed planted around your own self-care, around your own desire to be loving in the world and act on that love and be compassionate as you do so with yourself and of course with others. So one of the very cool things is, look at this. These two planets sitting right next to each other are Pluto and Mars. And when Pluto and Mars sit next to each other, there's an incredible intensity. There's incredible drive, and they are both in the sign of Capricorn. So what you need to know is this combination for all of us right now is hugely driving us to achieve and accomplish and climb a mountain, because Capricorn is all about climbing a mountain. And it churns us up, it gets us determined, it grits our teeth, it can sometimes bulldoze or knock over with its intensity. So yeah, we want to get something done. This is a time when people are like, I have to get done what I want to get done in the world. This is there's an inner experience of that. But also at this very moment, guess where the moon is? The moon is in the sign of Cancer today. And Cancer is a sign of profound sensitivity and has everything to do with the feeling life and has to do with uh, feeling outward into the world and saying, is it safe? Is it hospitable? Do I feel cared for? Am I nourishing myself? Am I nourishing others? Am I building a lighted house? And so isn't it interesting that they're opposite one another? Because they're sort of standing looking at each other going like, well, I want to get things done. And the moon in Cancer is saying, well, but I need to get things done with a lot of care and a care for myself. So this opposition is going on right now, and I think it's an opposition that we can all understand over lifetimes, really, is how do we walk this line of self-care and self-love and nourishment and building a lighted house, and at the same time take action. I mean, this is the whole Cancer Capricorn polarity, actually, is Cancer says, oh, stay home, stay close, build a lighted house, be nourished, and Capricorn says, go out into the world. So this is what we're really discussing today, is that dynamic. Another thing that I want to point out is that this conjunction is going on, Saturn conjunct Venus. And I'm giving you little tastes of these archetypal energies, these planets, because we all have heard of our sun sign. Our sun sign is, oh, I'm a Sagittarius, I'm a Capricorn, I'm a whatever it is. But we don't know about a lot about the other planets and what signs they are in our chart, or, for us all in the world. But right now, Venus and Saturn are sitting right next to each other. And whenever Venus is the planet of love, and Venus is the planet of beauty, and Saturn is the planet of commitment. And they are both in the sign of Scorpio. So to me, this combination is a commitment to, to love our fear away. It's a commitment to dive into the muck, to dive into the darkness, because Scorpio really has a lot to do with darkness, and to bring our love solidly there, to stand strong, to stand in our authority, in our greatest fears. I mean, this whole next 2-year period for us, or even 2.5 years with Saturn in Scorpio, is going to be a time when we have to face our fears. All of humanity has to stand and face the darkness in themselves and outside of themselves. And at this moment, Venus, the planet of light and intelligent love, is helping us do that deeply. And by the way, it's interesting that it's in the area of the chart. This little chunk of the chart has to do with your spiritual path. It has to do with higher study. It has to do with visions. So, this combination of those planets there, like commitment to love the depths so that we can walk our path, so that we can walk our spiritual path, so that we can envision a different way of living. And when I say envision, we are now in the sign of Sagittarius. And a lot of you, interestingly, have strong Sagittarius in your chart. There are many, many people out there with strong Sagittarius in their chart. And we are in the time of Sagittarius. Here's the sun in Sagittarius. We're 10 degrees in. So it is a time to envision. It is a time to envision a different way of living, a different way of being, a different way of setting a goal and reaching it without killing ourselves, and also setting a goal, reaching it, and acknowledging that we reached it, and really acknowledging it. In fact, I have a friend who said to me, okay, when you're done with this webinar, I want you to call me, because I want you to know that you finished this webinar and you did a good job, and you have to take 3 minutes before you go on and start doing the dishes. And we all have to do that, because we get to this thing, I've done it, okay, done, and we move on, and then it doesn't allow the body time to digest that. So I'm very much, for those of you that don't know me, I'm not only interested in astrology as a kind of mental exercise. Far from it. I'm interested in it, how it lives and breathes in our bodies, and how it softens us and opens us, and uh, dares us to step forward more fully into our lives. And that, in Sagittarius sun, we are daring, we risk. Okay, I just want to mention one more thing about this chart, and that is that we started this class with Aquarius rising. We are entering the age of Aquarius. Webinars are Aquarius. It is a group collaborative gathering where, whether we are conversing or not, our energy and attention is put upon this idea of radical self-compassion and love-fueled action. And because there are this many of us gathered together to focus on this, we are affecting a change. And Gemini says, Aquarius says, water of life am I, poured forth for thirsty men. So Aquarius wants to give its gift, and it wants to give a gift in community. It's so much about community. It's so much about a circle of people gathered with no sort of leader. We are all the leaders. We are all the radiant ones. We are the ones we've been waiting for, So Aquarius rising is a beautiful way for us to start. because it sounds a note of community. And we are in a little community right now, whether we ever meet again in this form together. Okay. So that's just a little glimpse. I mean, there's more to say. I mean, but I will proceed because you have your own charts and you have your own planetary positions that we're going to look at. Now I'm going to let that go. And I am, for those of you that know me, you know that poetry is key for me, because I also feel like poetry is a way to pierce the heart. And I don't think anything can happen, any change can happen until the heart is pierced, until we feel something with our entire being, until we quiet and breathe and receive something that is more light filled than our day to day existence. And from the moment I decided to do this webinar, I have been thinking about this poem, and I know that many of you know this poem, but I thought, you know what? I don't care because this poem um, is contains the seeds of everything that we want to carry away from this webinar, and and it's a gorgeous poem and has been around for 20 years, and um, it wants to be listened to. And here's what I encourage you to do: just close your eyes, if you're multitasking, stop, breathe, and just let these words of Mary Oliver's soak into your being and body. All right. Because this opens the heart, this opens the mind, this opens our space, our collaborative space for goodness to occur. All right. So this poem is called Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about your despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. So I love that poem because every time I read it out loud, uh, it softens it softens every part of me. And I could stop after the first line. You do not have to be good. Because I think we all have our astrological ways of trying to be good, trying to be right, trying to be perfect, trying to get it just so, that actually impede the light. And Mary Oliver is the poet who invites us to let the soft animal of our body love what it loves, and to be honest about our despair. Tell me about your despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. And sometimes we laugh hysterically, in our the Radiant Life retreats that I lead, because we see one another's wretchedness up on stage, and we are or up in front of us, and we see what we do to ourselves, and it's painful, and we laugh and we cry, but we let something go. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Are you ready to let it go? Are you ready to let go how you torture yourself? Am I ready to let that go? These are the big questions. And this poem invites us to open up to the wild geese. And to open up to nature, and to open up to the fact that, I love this, announcing your place in the family of things, because that is the moment you're born. Like that is the blueprint of the heavens. When you're born, is you are announced, your place is announced in the family of things, and you have something to do, and you have something to build into your being. You have something to breathe into your being, a gift that no one else has to give. And so if we can trust and breathe and know that, how lovely, how lovely. So yeah, that's Wild Geese by Mary Oliver, and I know that many of you have heard it, but oh, so good to revisit the oldies, as it were, right? Okay, so I was going to say remind me, but I will try to remind myself at the end of our time today, because I have another little tiny little piece by John O'Donohue that I'd like to share with you. But right now, what I would like you to do is, I'm sure I would like you to have in front of you your chart that I sent you, your astrological chart of the heavens when you were born. I'd like to have you have the blank wheel, the empty wheel, and I would like you to have the planetary positions that says you know your it looks like this. Hang on, it will come. It looks like this. There's Miss Florence. Hello, Florence. So it, I want you to have that as well. And as you're opening that, I want you to particularly note where your rising sign is. And even if you just can say to yourself, my rising sign is this. So I want you to know what your rising sign is. We are doing esoteric astrology. The rising sign has everything to do with the moment you were born and the sign that was at the horizon. And it is absolutely the energy that is rising in us. And what's important for you to know about the rising sign is that it's more important than any other position, because it has to do with a quality of being. It has to do with why we're here, what we're here to accomplish. Not, I don't even want to say that. No, what we're here to, what quality we're here to build into our being. Because frankly, it has very little to do with what we do out in the world. That will come, but it has much more to do with the texture, the quality, the essence of who we are. And it's as if I would say to you, your rising sign has everything to do with every inhale, breathing in more of that quality. So, what I'd like you to do is, if you look, I'm going to pull up the webinar start chart again. If you look at your chart, right here is the rising sign. So that little glyph, whatever that glyph is in your chart, that is your rising sign. And in this case, it's Aquarius. So you have two different ways of knowing what your rising sign is. Number one, the right here looking at your own chart, and number two, looking at the planetary positions. And I want you to take the blank wheel chart, this beautiful blank wheel chart, and I want you to just go ahead and put in a beautiful marker, put your rising sign right in that chart. Okay, so draw it. Even if the glyph doesn't make any sense to you, just draw that picture of the rising sign. And even as you're drawing it right now, I want you to feel anything that comes up for you around what that looks like. Does it look like a lion's tail? Does it look like a setting sun? Does it look like a column? Does it look like horns? Does it look like water? I want you to just draw it in there. Because frankly, I get simpler and simpler as I practice astrology more and more, and as I see my clients. And sometimes I feel, if we could just deeply understand the rising sign and its gifts, we would be in amazing shape. We're going to do more than that, but I want you to feel into this. So, what I want you to know, for those of you that don't know anything about astrology, is that if you are Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius rising, that means you have fire rising. And that means you are here to burn. That means you are here to blaze, uh, to get to the essence, to be passionate, to initiate, to be externally expressive. It is it is erratic. Fire is erratic, but it is potent to watch. And you are here to burn to the essential. Okay, I just want you to feel that. I want you to feel that you are here for fire. Okay, Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius. And you could even, as I'm going through these, just even feel it in the core of your body. When I think I am here for fire, and I think about it at the core of my body, something changes. Okay. So I want you to think now, if you are Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn rising, you are here for earth. Earth is practical, it is ageless, it is eternal, it stays, it is grounded, it is substantial, it is manifesting, it is heavy. Uh, it says, and thus I stand, right? So feel that in the core of your body. If you are here for earth, then you better believe you're here to stand, to plant, to ground, to manifest. So feel the texture of earth, like your whole column is like densely packed, gorgeous earth. If you are Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius rising, you are here for air. And air is the wind, and air is the whisper, and air is the breath, and it's the exchange, and it's about it's light. It can be strong, but it's about communication and exchange and curiosity and knowledge and the mind and relationships. Hugely about relationships. Hugely about how I interact with you and you interact with me, and I've got to figure this out, right? All air signs are about figuring out how to really relate, first and foremost with the self, then with the other, then with humanity, with everything. So it's very much about communication, relationship, and weaving fabrics of connection. If you are Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, you are here for water. You are here for depth. You are here for emotional sensitivity. You are here to go into the depths of who you are and feel it and transform it. You are here to uh, to feel into others, to nourish others, to redeem others, to wrap your arms around others. You are here for flow. Nothing superficial. It's all about the feeling sentient life. All right. So already, and you can feel that in your column. What if your whole body was just flowing? What if it was an ocean? What if it was constantly moving in you? So just feel into those textures. Knowing nothing about astrology, you can say, I'm here for fire, I'm here for earth, I'm here for air, I'm here for water. Okay. However, let's look a little bit deeper. All right. Let's look at some of the gifts of your rising sign, um, and what you really want to call in. So I'm trying to decide whether to put a little, I think I'll put a paper up for you to so you can take a look. Um, as we go over the rising sign, what I want you to know is that when we later look at the sun and the moon, we can refer back to some of these qualities. So we're going to take a little bit longer to go through the rising sign, but it will establish something that we can then return to. Okay. So we're going to go through these qualities of being for the rising sign, and I want you to breathe them in as we get to your sign. And in fact, I would love for you, if one word particularly resonates with you in the rising sign, I would love for you to write it down on that chart. That, to dare, to pioneer, or pioneer, and just let that word stand on your blank chart as one quality of being that you're meant to build in. So very quickly, but simply and patiently. I'm an Aries, so I tend to go quickly and plunge in. And So sometimes I have to remind myself to say yes very quickly, but also with depth and with quiet and with fullness. So if you're here as an Aries rising, you better believe you're here to come forth, to dare, to pioneer, to initiate, to dive in. The glyph itself looks like the horns of a ram that are ready to dive in to experience, to clash with experience, to to um, to bust through. So Aries risings are here to start something. The beautiful soul phrase for Aries, and as I say these soul phrases, listen to them and breathe them in and write them down. The beautiful soul phrase for Aries is I come forth and from the plane of mind I rule. So Aries is very much about the bold new idea. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the highest aspects of these signs. I'm going to talk to you about the soul centered aspect of these signs, not about the personality aspect right now, because I want to plant the deepest, most potent seed for you. And the deepest, most potent seed for Aries is not so much about how it fights, but how it dares in the mental plane to come forth with its idea, with its message, with its new seed. So I come forth, and from the plane of mind I rule. And the planet Mercury is incredibly important for Aries. So um, it's a fire sign and it plunges forward. I'm just going to, okay, we're going to move at this pace. I could go on forever, and I will. I'm going to be teaching a much longer course starting in January, and we're going to really deeply, richly go into all these positions. But let's get tastes of them. And if you've studied astrology forever, just breathe and listen to something new. I was taking a walk this morning, and I had a whole new insight about Saturn in my ninth house, just based on thinking simply about astrology. And so be willing to be surprised about going back to a fundamental aspect of these signs. So if you're Taurus rising, Earth, manifest, cultivate, create beauty, see beauty, intuit, enlighten. You're here to see the beauty that underlies everything. You're here to see the light that is inherent in everything. You're here to make something real and tangible and manifest. You're here to bring beauty very substantially, very tangibly to the world. And and you will do whatever it takes to bring that beauty. And that is why the undiscovered planet Vulcan rules Taurus, because Vulcan is the energy that will bash something into shape until the light shines through. So, Taurus it rules the third eye of illumination. It rules the ajna center, and the phrase is, I see, and when the eye is open, all is light. So it has so much to do about sitting for enlightenment and letting the eye open that sees beauty everywhere. And, Taurus can get stuck in just physical beauty, but ultimately it wants to see the beauty that is inherent in even what appears as the quote unquote ugliest thing you might see. So it is an earth sign, and it is solid, and it is manifesting. So if you are a Taurus rising, you are here to see something that others don't see and then make that beauty manifest in the world. You are here to see the beauty and make it manifest. If you are Gemini rising, that is an air sign, and it's such a beautiful sign of connection and bridge building and relating and communicating and connecting people and connecting ideas, so that by the time you're done with your life, you have woven a tapestry of love. You have woven a tapestry of beauty, because your ideas it's like 1,000 points of light have met together and uh, have fused, because the planet Venus at the esoteric level rules Gemini, and Venus is a planet of fusion and bringing things together. So if you are here with Gemini rising, you are here to connect, first and foremost, to connect your own soul and personality, first and foremost, to understand that you are the soul and not just the personality. And that's why the phrase is, I see my other self and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. So Gemini speaks from the position of the soul. I see my other self, the personality that's doing a lot of scattering at its most difficult. And it says, and in the waning and in the reducing of that self, I grow and glow. So it has so much to do with connecting at a soul level, connecting people and ideas at a soul level so that we weave this tapestry of love. So, and if you have Gemini rising, get your message out. You are a messenger for sure. If you're Aries rising, you're a pioneer. If you're Taurus rising, you're a manifester. If you're Gemini rising, you are a messenger. Cancer rising, profound sensitivity. You're here to protect, you're here to nourish, you're here to wrap your arms around, to build a secure foundation, to build family. Who is your family? You know, this is the question with Cancer. Who is your family? Can humanity be your family? Can you wrap your arms around something larger than your own tribe? This is a huge question with Cancer, and it's one of the most deeply sensitive, uh, embracing, nourishing signs. And actually, the planet Neptune rules Cancer at the esoteric level, and Neptune is the god of the waters and the god of sensitivity and the god of transcendent love. So while Cancer in an early stage can be very fearful and onto itself, as it grows, it knows how to build wholes, WHOLES, and include more and more and more. So if you're here for Cancer, who is your family? What do you want to nourish? What do you want to protect? What secure foundation do you want to build? Many business women and men have Cancer rising because they want to build a lighted house for their work. You know, the phrase for Cancer is, I build a lighted house and therein dwell. So it's so much about building your home, building your foundation, not only for your family, but for whatever you want to nourish. If you're Leo rising, you are here to express, to lead, to direct, to act. You are here for fire. You are here to, as an artist, as a benevolent leader. You are here to express the full courageous self and to never compromise it. So you are here to live artfully, for your life to be living art. It doesn't, you know, and sometimes people have Leo rising and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm the most timid person in the world. What are you talking about? And that's it. You see, it's our rising sign. It's what we're here to breathe in. We're here with, if you have Leo rising, you're here to breathe in courage. You're here to breathe in the sense of self, the courage to have a self, the courage to express that self. And the sun rules Leo at all levels. So it's very much about radiance. But Neptune is the ruler at the esoteric level, and Neptune says, you know, asks the question of like, who am I? What self am I? Am I the personality? Am I the soul? You know, and when I say personality and soul, look, really, it's about, are you here? The soul is the eternal part of us. The soul is the generous part of us. The soul goes on. The soul wants to give. The personality is more interested in its own needs and its own expressions. So um, the soul is what wants to shine forth in Leo. Virgo rising. Virgo rising is all about its earth. It's about refining and perfecting and analyzing and purifying and uh, looking at something and seeing how it needs to be adjusted so that more light can pour through. Virgos are the hardest workers ever. If you have Virgo rising, you better believe that you're going to have an incredible work ethic, that you want to get something done, that you want to devote yourself to something. And the phrase for Virgo, oh, by the way, the phrase for Leo, sorry, is I am that and that am I. So in Leo, the identity of I grows and grows and grows until the I includes everyone. Okay, so that's the phrase for Leo. I am that and that am I. For Virgo, it is I am the mother and the child. I, God, I matter, am. So Virgo both wants to pay incredible attention to the material world, to fix it, to purify it, to perfect it, to make it healthy, to pay attention to the womb so that the child can be born. So Virgo will be very concerned with the vessel itself, so that the being that grows in the vessel, or the love that grows in the vessel, or the light that grows in the vessel can be expressed. So, and Virgo esoterically is ruled by the moon, which is interesting. It's ruled by the material world, but underneath that is the planet Vulcan, which once again wants to get something into shape. It wants to forge the physical form into shape so that it can hold more light. So, Libra rising, it's an air sign. It's about relationship. It's about beautification. It's about creating balance. It's about justice. It's about finding the noble middle path, the razor's edge. And if you have Libra rising, you're here to figure something out about relationships. You're here to make choices. You know, more and more as I talk to my clients, that's what I'm realizing about Libra is that it's really to make the choices that the clear, direct choices that affect substantial change in your life. So you're not hung up in indecision, so that you can walk a middle path, so that you don't swing back and forth, so that you don't swing into another person so fully that you forget yourself. So it's very much about the choice to walk this middle line. You know, with Libra, we're halfway through the zodiac, and it's this middle point where we have to find our own equilibrium. Um, and we have to walk with precision and care. And the first relationship, once again, with Libra has to be with the self, and it has to be with beauty, the beauty of the self, so that then you can extend yourself gracefully, harmoniously, fairly. Okay, because otherwise you're out of whack. Otherwise, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how all these signs go out of whack, because guess what? We can't be perfect and beautiful and gorgeous beings all of the time. We're here to be this, but a lot of times we don't show up as this. We walk through the door in a different way. And we're growing this quality. That's why it's called the rising sign. We're learning how to relate. We're learning how to work. We're learning how to express, to nourish at the deepest levels, but we're going to mess up. Right? So, okay. So let's proceed. Scorpio is the second water sign, and it has everything to do with oh, by the way, again, I'm sorry. Libra is I choose the way which lies between the two great lines of force. I choose the way which lies between the two great lines of force. Very beautiful. Scorpio says, warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. Warrior. It's a warrior sign. It's a sign of depth. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of penetration. It's a sign of transformation. It insists on going into the dark and bringing it to the light. If you have Scorpio rising, you will have a life of shedding skins, of burning up and being reborn again, of profound letting goes, of intensity, of getting to the heart of the matter. And Scorpio, if you have Scorpio, you're here to strengthen the resolve, to be tenacious, to get to the truth, to be willing to face the darkness. You are the warriors. You face the dark. And Mars is the planet that faces what it has to face. It has incredible courage and incredible aspiration. So if you're here for Scorpio, warrior, depth, penetration, sacrifice. Sometimes you have to let go of something for something new to be born. You have to sacrifice. Very intense beings, Scorpio risings. You can see it in their eyes. Sagittarius rising, fire again. If you're here for Sagittarius, you're here to uplift, you're here to enliven, you're here to envision, you're here to inspire us, to teach. So many people with Sagittarius rising are here to teach. They're here to broaden, they're here to take risks, they're here to expand. It's interesting because Sagittarius, the phrase is, I see the goal, I reach the goal, and then I see another. I mentioned that earlier in the class. And it has so much to do with forward momentum and traveling and, freedom and the path, walking the path, running the path, bounding on the path. It has a lot to do with look where we're going. We're going here and leading the rest of us where we're going. Of course, we have to be careful with Sagittarius about being a zealot and saying this is the only way. But Sagittarians also, they're ruled by Earth, the Earth. So Sagittarians really want to do something substantial on the earth. They want to make it practical and real. They want to do their service. Oftentimes they're very concerned with the earth itself and caring for the earth and how can we care better for the earth. So if you're here for Sagittarius, you are here to broaden your perspective, and you are here to inspire others to do the same. Capricorn says, lost am I in light supernal, yet on that light I turn my back. Wow. And what the image is, a person at the top of a mountaintop, they've climbed their mountain, they've had an initiatory experience, they've realized something, they have gotten to the top, they've gotten to perfection. And yet, once you achieve what you've set out to accomplish in Capricorn, you go down the mountain to serve. So that's what that has to do with. But Capricorn itself, if you're here with Capricorn rising, you are here with intention, with purpose. You are here to parent something, to parent someone, to parent yourself. You're here for accomplishment. You're here to you're here with a very serious, sober approach to life that that will get you somewhere. There is a mountaintop in sight, and this lifetime is about climbing that mountain if you're here with Capricorn rising, and to understand that the soul is the ultimate authority. All right. And Saturn, the planet Saturn, which has to do with structure and has to do with um, authority and discipline and commitment. This is the planet that rules Capricorn. So, Capricorn risings have a quality of an age-old quality, kind of a gravitas about them at their best. They need to learn how to play, of course. Okay, Aquarius, water of life am I, poured forth for thirsty men. It's an air sign. If you're here for Aquarius, you are here to invent, to innovate, to serve, to distribute, to welcome in the new age, to liberate, to do something different, to take the road less traveled, to cooperate, to work in community. Aquarius rising people want to work in community. And they are here to say it can be done differently. The Aquarian age is the age where we don't put anyone on a pedestal. We don't say, you are the one that will save me. We look around the circle and we say, together we will walk forward. And so Aquarians are very interested in figuring out how together as a group we can solve the problems of the day, how we can each bring our gifts to bear. So if you're Aquarius rising, lots of freedom, lots of invention, lots of innovation, lots of desire to serve. Water of life am I. That's your knowledge, that's your gift that you want to pour forth. And finally, my dears, Pisces rising. And if you're here for Pisces rising, you're actually wrapping up, generally with Pisces rising, you are wrapping up an old karmic cycle, because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac and it wants to complete something. It wants something to be done with. It wants to say, this particular era is complete and I am starting anew. Pisces rising is about saving and uplifting and redeeming. And first the self. First with compassion towards the self, and then reaching out, because it can be very easy to feel despair in Pisces. And first we must encircle ourselves with love, and then to uplift and redeem and love and stand vulnerable and stand visible, because Pisces often like to be invisible. So you have to be visible with the raw heart on your sleeve and very interested in uplifting and caring for those that are most in need. So these are incredible strengths of your rising sign. And I also sent you, which we won't go through, but I sent you in the last um, missive yesterday another sheet that had my own, like, not suggestions. It's like, do this, try this if you are this rising sign, so definitely I would love you to, like, circle that, to feel that, to explore that, if you uh, in your own time. Okay, so I'm going to open up for questions in just a few minutes. So if you have a question, just know that you will be able to ask it, and it will be lovely to hear a voice. But um, I do want to explore for this moment what happens. It's all well and good to go, okay, I'm great, I'm here to nourish, okay, but I can't even get out of bed in the morning, or I'm here to dare. Well, how am I supposed to dare? And so we have to realize that the rising sign is also like the doorway to a castle. It's the front entrance. It's how people see us when we walk through. And so we might show up looking very differently than a daring pioneering spirit, or a person full of authority. What I said earlier, what we're working on isn't always manifesting externally, right? What we're working on is growing in us. And and there's so many times we can all relate to this, when we're like, I know that I do this, and now I'm watching myself do it again. We go, oh, I know that I tend to control things, and here I'm doing it. I'm watching myself do it. Well, that stage lasts a huge amount of time, because first we shed the light and we examine ourselves doing it, and then we make the tiniest changes to start to affect a change. But frankly, the stage of, oh, look, here I am doing this, the stage of noticing that, and then being patient with oneself, and being kind with oneself, and being loving with oneself, that stage is key. And that's really the stage we're talking about a lot right now. But let's just look for a moment, and you're going to see me appear. Hello again. Let's look for a moment at how some of these signs show up in their less flattering way. Okay. So um, I'm going to pull up a sheet that you don't have, but this is a sheet that I would call being compassionate towards yourself, and how we can do this. Um, you know what? In fact, I'm not going to keep that up there. I'm going to talk to you about it. It's too easy to just read. So let's just look at how an Aries rising might look if they're not in their best light, if they're in a bit of their wretchedness, and how they might be able to change. Okay, so if you're in your wretchedness as an Aries rising, there's a lot of impatience, there's a lot of fight, and and there's a lot of aggression, and there's a lot of me first, me first, me first. But what I want to articulate right now is, from the wretchedness where the beauty springs. So if you can feel into the fact that there's impatience, that there's like, I want to get this done, why isn't this happening, I'm the one to do it, I need to be first in line. Can you feel the seeds from that, of how you have the daring present? I can do this, why not me, why not now, I'm going to do it, I'm just going to do it, I'm going to do this, I'm going to plant this seed. So there's the energy of wanting to come forth and wanting to engage is there. It just needs to be channeled in the light of the soul. It just needs to be channeled for the good of another. And of course, that's a whole tricky territory. But I want you to feel that progression. We're like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. I hate you. I'm not getting anything done. I hate this. And yet you feel the energy present that is like a seed that is potent, that wants to explode. And it's in that energy is like, well, I can do this. So it needs its vehicle, it needs its vessel, it needs physical exertion, it needs to dive into something that is uh, potent for another, so that it can give its gift. Like, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to lead the way. I'm going to give myself permission to share my bold idea. Okay, I'm going to give you other flavors of this. So if Taurus at its walks through the door, if it's here to manifest beauty and light, yes, but it is also can also be lazy, it can also be stubborn, it can also be fixed, it can also be wanting to be comfortable. But there's something beautiful that happens out of that lethargy, in a way, out of that slowness, that if you sit still long enough, you start to see the beauty inherent in all things. You know, Taurus does sit for enlightenment. And I have a great story about this, in fact. Over Thanksgiving, I'm an Aries. My older brother, Brennan, is a Taurus. And we were running around getting Thanksgiving ready. And there was a moment when Thanksgiving was ready, and I was being so very Aries about it. And I was like, okay, I've got to get everybody around the table because we have to do this blessing, and everything's hot, and we need to have it happen now. And I was just in my whole Aries mode. And I ran. There was 2 houses that we were renting, and I ran to the other house, and I was looking for my brother, and he was the only one not there, and he wasn't answering, and I was so frustrated, and I was calling out to him, and I was like, how rude. And finally, I saw him. He'd been hearing me all along. He was behind the house and he was watching the sunset. And he refused to answer me. He was being very Taurus. He refused to answer me. He was taking pictures of the sun. And I was like, Brennan, I can't believe you're not joining us. I can't believe you're not. I mean, it's ready. And he's like, the sun is setting, honey, Heidi. The sun is setting and it's beautiful. And it's one of the most beautiful sunsets that I've seen in a long time. I'll come in a minute. And this is a beautiful example of Aries and Taurus, but it's also a beautiful example of how, yes, he was being fixed and stubborn, and yes, he wasn't necessarily thinking of his family gathered around the table, but he was also seeing something that I was not seeing. And he was also going slowly enough and quietly enough to witness beauty. And in that moment, though I was still frustrated, I looked to the sunset and I said, okay, there's that too, actually. There's that too. And this is how he gives part of his gift. Okay. So out of the desire for comfort or slowness also comes the capacity to see that beauty. So I'm trying to articulate that territory of change a little bit. Okay. Set Gemini, yes, in its worst and its most difficult, it can come through the door and it's talkative and it's scattered and it only wants the cold hard facts and it wants to collect facts, and it's very much about the concrete mind, and it's talking and talking and talking and talking. And you sometimes want to be like, okay, quiet down, settle down. You know, there's a phrase around Gemini that says, let instability do its work, right? So it's like, it's just constant. But in fact, all that energy, it's a little messenger, and it's a messenger of light, and it sees 1,000 points of light and it connects them. It's like, okay, look, you do need to meet one another. And if that is soul infused, if that is coming from a place uh, of good intention and goodwill, then it's beautiful, because you are connecting the people that need to be connected, and you are putting together the ideas that need to be put together. So that restless energy, if harnessed through breath, through simplicity, through patience, through continuing to work to open to love, to if that's harnessed, it can create a beautiful web of light. So the in between territory for Gemini is really about slowing down enough to see what is superficial and what is not, what really wants to be talked about and what doesn't need to be talked about, who really needs to connect around what, and what ideas need to be brought together. So it's a slowing down so that you can see where you really need to fuse. Interesting territory, yeah? Cancer rising can get really overly sensitive and focused on its own tribe and very fearful and very onto itself and doesn't want to see the light of day. And it wants to just protect its own because it has felt pain and it has been wounded and it feels the pain of the world, you know? So it stays into itself. But, uh, and it nourishes that little tribe like crazy. It nourishes it deeply. What it wants to do, however, ultimately, is it wants to let love win the day over fear and wrap its arms around the human family as if it were its own, right? So there's an in between territory with Cancer where, because it knows how to nourish, it knows how to love, it knows how to tend to a certain circle, it just needs to keep expanding that circle. It just needs to open up a little bit more and then a little bit more and go, okay, I haven't been wounded yet. I haven't been wounded yet. Oh, I was wounded, but can I still stay open? Can I still stay open even with that wound, or do I have to close down around it? Right? So, Cancer, the in between territory is to just keep opening, including more in your circle, not just going, these are my children and this is my family and everybody else out there is scary. It wants to dare to risk feeling more and more and feeling others more and more without feeling, you know, drowned by it. But I always love the image of the spheres going outward, okay? That includes more and more. So that in between territory is just coming a little bit out of the dark into the light, coming a little bit out and seeing if you're okay. And then pretty soon you're going to hold the world. You're the divine mothers. You're the earth mom. You know, you're the mamas of the world. The Cancer rising. All right. Leo rising, the in between territory is really interesting because you come in and it's like, at its most wretched, it's like, I'm very special, I'm very proud, I'm very isolated in my pride, I want to rule the world. You know, also sometimes Leo rising can be like, I'm totally afraid and I don't even want to have a self. That's another version of Leo rising. But it must become the benevolent ruler who sometimes must stand alone, but it holds the good of the whole and it sees the gifts in others and it expresses the heart wholeheartedly. But the journey for that, there's an in between territory where it's like, I am special. I do have a gift to give. But oh, look, so are you, and so are you, and so are you, and so are you. You know, a Leo has to look out to the world and see that everyone else is in its own way a Leo as well, you see? So they have to feel the Leo energy all around. It's not just, I am the queen of everything. Be the queen of your world, but also recognize that everyone else are queens and kings of their world. So it has to do with the I expanding. So it has to do with appreciation of another and appreciation of their regality, appreciation of their I-ness until all those individual I-nesses melt away. Yeah. So, and if you're more of the type of the Leo rising that's just terrified to roar, the in between territory is just about the courage to have the self, the courage to stand with your heart open, the courage to say I am. Right. Okay. Virgo, if we're walking through the door and we're not, you know, we don't have our stuff together yet, Virgo has this, it can be incredibly critical, can be incredibly analytical, can be a workaholic, can see everything that is imperfect, you know, wants to analyze and dissect everything. But we have to remember that it's doing that not just to make us all feel wretched or not to make ourselves feel wretched as Virgo rising, because Virgo risings can also be incredibly self-critical, but they're here to see what wants to be purified and refined so that it can hold more light and love. So that has to start with the self. They want to become a vessel of light. So yes, there's, how do we take this horribly self-critical energy and this, you know, this or critical energy out in the world, or this, I'm the only one that can do this work, so I'm going to work myself to the bone. How do we turn that towards a more gentle refinement? And there's an in-between territory with Virgo where we look and we have to say, does that really need to be fixed and addressed? Like, does the house need to be cleaned again? Do I need to fold my clothing for the 10th time today? Do I need to organize this to, you know, within an inch of my life? Or can some of that energy just be turned towards a refinement and a beautifying and a, 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 an attention to the health and well-being, physical and emotional, mental, of the body, so that there's a more of a tenderness coming in, an incredible eye for detail, but a tenderness coming in as well. Yeah, so there's an interesting in-between territory there too. So, all right, now what I would like to do, we're halfway through that part, but I would like to go ahead and just open it up for a few questions, just to make sure you're all on target, just to make sure you're getting it, because I've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes now, and I even want you to stretch. But if there are any questions, I would definitely love to have you ask them. And I'm just creating a space for that. So you let me know, and I'm going to give a moment before I proceed. I'm just checking. Boop, 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 boop. I hope that the video has been okay. I've just kept it up pretty much. But if anybody could ask a question or even give feedback if it has made sense about the discussion about the rising sign. Okay, here's a question. Hang on a second. Let's see. For some reason, it doesn't want to whoop. Nancy, I see you have a question. You apparently have to enter an audio pin of 112 because I think you're calling in. So if you can enter the audio pin of 112, then I think I can unmute you. So try that, and then we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, I'm giving you all a chance to breathe because I go full speed ahead. But meanwhile, if there's anyone else who has a question, please feel free to raise your hand. I'm going to just go through the list one more time. I know another possibility. I think you're calling in, Nancy, so I don't know if you can. Here, Renata. Looks like you have a question. Oh, there you are. Hello, Renata. Are you there? Do you have a question? Renata?
Oh no. Sorry.
That's okay. We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if you could repeat the keynote for Pisces. I think I missed it.
Yes, you're right. You did not miss it. I did not say it. I'm known for
Okay.
this. Okay, so the Pisces phrase, and isn't it terrible that I forgot Pisces because Pisces have a invisibility thing. Pisces is I leave my father's house and turning back I save. And what's interesting about that is the idea with Pisces is that it wants sanctuary and it wants to feel it can be in its own little world, and it wants to return to the source. But in fact, it does have to. It wants to go back out into the world and save. It wants to go back out into the world and help others. So I leave my father's house where it feels safe, where it feels comfortable, where it feels onto itself, and it goes back out to help every last pilgrim. Okay, so that is that's the phrase for Pisces. And I just muted you, so but I hope that's good. Now let's see. Anybody else have a question? Let's see. I think Renee has a question. Let me unmute you, Renee. Okay, go ahead, Renee. Hello.
Oh, I just typed it in, Heidi.
Oh, you did? Okay. Do you want to say it out loud?
I was wondering why this signs have different rulers in esoteric astrology. I didn't quite understand like when you were talking about like
Different.
Leo being ruled by the sun, but also by Neptune.
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So, basically, and this is a big study, and again, I'm going to go into a 10-week class in January, but in esoteric astrology, there is a question about in esoteric astrology, we're interested in what we can give. We're interested in the soul. We're interested in how what we've cultivated over lifetimes and what we can give in this lifetime. In exoteric astrology, which is the astrology most of us know about, it's more about like what can I get? and what can happen for me. Okay. And so there are two different rulerships. So for example, and I'm just going to give you one example, Aries at the personality level has Mars ruling it, which is all about fight, which is all about me first, which we were talking about. So at a certain level, Aries in its young stage is ruled by Mars, and it says, get out of the way, I'm coming at you. It's like diving in. At the soul-centered level, Mercury rules it. So in other words, when you're ready to, this is oversimplification, but in a way, when you are ready to give of yourself more fully, a whole separate list of rulers comes in. When you are ready to give your gift generously, a whole different set of rulers comes in. So every sign has this, and this is something that as we would learn astrology together, this is what we would discuss. I'll give you another example. Gemini at the personality level is ruled by Mercury. Okay. And Gemini ruled by Mercury is the part of you. Mercury is the messenger, it's the communicator, it's the writer, it's the one that wants to just talk up a storm. It wants to chat, it wants to it wants to write and be verbal, and it has lots of information, and it wants facts. That's all the mercurial level of Gemini. But at the soul-centered level, again, it's what I was talking about with this idea of Venus, where Venus wants to fuse. Venus wants to bring things together that really want to be brought together. Okay. So this is a very complicated question. It's an excellent question. I would love to talk more about it. But basically what I want you to know is that there are actually three different sets of rulers. There's the personality set of rulers, there's the soul-centered set of rulers, and there's the hierarchical or spiritual set of rulers. And we'll cover all of that in my next class. And there's also stuff online that I have on my resources page that covers some of this as well. So, but that's a great question. Thank you, Renee. Okay, let's see. Well, maybe we'll do another question. And I see there are a lot of questions coming in. And again, I promise that I will answer them all if you email me. But I'll do one more question right now, and then we'll move on. And then I'll do another question asking at the end. Okay. So Michael, why don't you go ahead?
Am I on?
You're both on. Hi, Michael. Hi.
Michael.
Great. Yes.
I'm just wondering about the relationship between your sun sign and your rising sign.
Yeah.
Because as you were talking, I was like, well, if my sun sign is Virgo and my rising sign is Leo, I'm relating to both of those signs, but how exactly?
Yeah. So this is an excellent question. Which we're supposed to get into now. So basically, yes. I mean, let's lay the groundwork for that. I'm gonna finish up the rising signs, but I'm gonna lay the groundwork for the sun. It's amazing how 2 hours. I mean, it's like amazing how much I want to cover, but we're gonna cover more. So the sun sign, yes. What you need to know, what I'd love for you to carry away. One of the things from today is that yes, the rising sign is the sign of being. It's the sign that you want to embody more, that in your own quiet column heart self. It's like what you want to emanate. The sun sign has much more to do with your doing self out in the world. It has to do with your personality. It has to do with what you actually might choose to do in your career, what you might choose to do in your work in the world. So it's a much more tangible energy. Now, most of us live in the sun sign. The sun sign is called the sun of probability. I will most probably manifest this way. And the rising sign is called the sign of possibility. So in your case, Meredith, you're a Leo rising. So you are meant at the core to live this energy, to be this energy of creative expression. It's like your whole column is filled with I-ness and fecundity and creativity. But your vehicle out there is Virgo, which is like, and I will create the systems, and I will create the precision, and I will create the perfect vehicle for that lion creativity to pour through. Another way to think about the rising sign and the sun sign is that the rising sign is a great, great light. It is who you are, and it is pouring through your sun as a vessel for that energy. So, even as I went through all the rising sign qualities, you're already, you guys also have a list of your sun. So you were probably already starting to listen for your sun sign qualities. So, I want you to just hold the idea that I would love you to experiment with the idea that in fact you are your rising sign, so that as people ask, what are you? You Meredith would say, I am a Leo. I am a Leo, and I'm using the energy of Virgo for all my gorgeous Leo-ness. Okay. So that's just a tiny little piece. But I tell you what, I see a ton of questions, but I'm gonna keep going, and the questions will be addressed. I know that some people are like, the webinar is over and you never ask a question again, but we will definitely address these questions, okay? And I might even address them right at the very end. So I just let's wrap up, because I want to get to your sun a bit, but I want to just finish that in between territory of the rising signs, okay? So the in-between territory with Libra is, if you walk in as a Libra rising, you might be indecisive, you might be overly accommodating, you might be righteous about fairness, you might be too invested in the other. But what Libra wants to do, as I was saying earlier, is it wants to make choices that are in alignment with the self. And what a Libra rising has to do, it has to trust a karmic balancing. If a Libra is interested in fairness and like what is right and what is wrong and who is right and who is wrong, at its best, it trusts a karmic fairness. And so for a Libra, it keeps trying to make the right decision that keeps you in balance with yourself, so that you can reach out to others and maintain your own integrity. I mean, there's a joke about Libra that says they ask, they find out how they are by saying, how are you? So obviously we don't want to do that. We want to say, how am I? And then hello. So there's the in-between, there's a territory of like, what do I want? What do I need? What do I choose? And a willingness to let go of any sense of like what is right or what is fair, and releasing a little bit into a greater cosmic universal trust around everyone's own karma. Yeah. Okay, Scorpio, the middle territory is interesting. It's if you have Scorpio rising and you're not having your best day, you're gonna walk in the room and it's gonna be intense and it's gonna be secretive and it's gonna be not trusting, and you're gonna want your own space, and you could be attacking, and you could pick a fight, right? So there's an incredible intensity because Scorpios can see into the dynamics of how things work, and they can actually see to the heart of you often, right? So that's something that's a potential gift. And the in-between territory for Scorpio is to take all that tension, all that intensity, and fuel it for the cause of transformation, because you want to become the warrior who's willing to face all your darkness, including, face darkness, including your own. And you want to use that intensity to trust your own strength and tenacity to see something through. So instead of the feeling of like, I'm being betrayed and I'm jealous and uh, I'm onto myself, you have to take that same kind of intensity and turn it out into the world and invest in something and get to the heart of something. Okay. So even as I'm talking about each of these, if you have your sun sign here, pay attention, because it's a similar journey. It's just that I'm talking about a quality of being for the rising sign. So you want to bring in a quality of tenacity and warriorhood that takes you out of your own kind of darkness and gives you a sword, and you cut through to the light. Okay. Sagittarius at its wretched is blunt, it's without boundary, it's full of desire, it's without focus, it's hungry all the time and shooting its arrows in lots of different directions. It's kind of young at heart, but can be too much. So what but there's incredible enthusiasm. And so the in-between territory is you take that enthusiasm and you become vigorous as a one-pointed disciple. You take all this energy of inspiration and you focus it, because Sagittarius loves to be like, I want that, I'm hungry for that, I desire that, um, why not go there? I'm going to take off here, and it wants to take it all in and get you focused and get you visionary and get you seeing far and seeing clearly. So the in between territory is just finding a way to harness all that physicality and all that boundless enthusiasm, but with your eye on the goal, with your eye on what your spiritual goal really is. Yeah. Okay, the in-between territory for Capricorn. Capricorns at their worst, they walk in the room, you're Capricorn rising, you can appear serious, sober, isolated, cold, without affect, without humor. That's one way a Capricorn rising can walk in the room. And the juicy territory for you as a Capricorn rising, because your gift is to become so full of the clear, cool light of intention, like this, to be a column of intention and to recognize your own authority. So you're meant to recognize your own authority, so you don't have to push to put it on like I'm important, and you don't have to push it away. You don't have to you don't have to push others away. So the in between territory really has to do with breathing in your own authority to such an extent that you actually have a sense of humor about who you are, and you actually have a sense of humor about what you want to do in the world. And I always say this, but a lot of comedians are Capricorns, because they do have a sense of humor about their seriousness. And this is what needs to be cultivated, that you're not alone, that you're not isolated, that that life is serious, but you can also laugh at it, and that you trust that you don't have to be something, that you already are, that you already have all this amazing authority in your very being, because the soul is the authority, and we are all the souls. We are a soul, so built in is an authority. Yeah. And you just have to be who you are, and you start to have an authority. If you allow anybody allows themselves to be who they are, they'll start to do what they're meant to do in the world. So laugh. Aquarius, the in-between territory is interesting, because remember how I was talking about Aquarius rising? We want community, we want to have creative collaboration, we want to join circles that welcome the new. But oftentimes Aquarius walk through the door and they feel isolated, and they feel aloof, and they feel detached, and they feel like a lone wolf, and uh, they feel like, I'm not like you. So, it's sort of akin to the Leo, in that Aquarius is, they're in between territories, that they have to look around and go, you know what, I'm not so unique, quote, I am unique. We're all totally unique, and we're not. We're all totally individuals, and we're one. We're all have radically different gifts, and we all have a sameness. So Aquarians need to look around and go, I'm not so radically crazily different that nobody gets me. I have to start to build my community, and yeah, you can be a part of it, and you can be a part of it, and you know, you don't have to detach so much. So Aquarians need to look out into the world and sort of welcome people in, even if they feel very different. Um, and also, just what else would I say about that? That there's a tendency to detach with Aquarius, and to look at things from a mental perspective and not an emotional perspective. So Aquarians could also stand to just drop out of the bird's eye view and into the humanness of things, and not feel like you have to step out and solve the problem. And finally, Pisces, the in-between territory is interesting, because yes, on our worst days, a Pisces rising walks through and feels hopeless, feels depressed, feels like a hermit, wants to be a hermit, feels like a victim, wants to hide, doesn't want to be seen, feels like they're spiraling downward. But therein lies the greatest strength. Therein lies the gift, because there's this incredible choice. There's this incredible moment of being raw, choosing to be raw and tender and seen, choosing to end a karmic cycle of pain or invisibility, and turning your attention first to the self, where you can stand up and breathe and offer yourself, even in your rawness, to your friend, to your family. And then from there, look out to those less fortunate, look out to those that you can lend a hand, but you have to be able to stand up and be seen in your rawness. And that's the in-between territory with Pisces rising. Okay. So there's a little journey. Now, believe it or not, by covering the rising signs, we've also really started to work with the sun and the moon. And what I want to do now is I do definitely want to presence the sun, because, as I said, the sun is the sun of possibility. And for some of you, you have the sun and rising in the same sign, and when that happens, the rising sign is the highest quality of that sign, and the sun might manifest in a slightly different quality, but you're definitely here to learn about that sign, for goodness sake. So let's just dive in here for a moment. And what I want you to, your blank sheet of paper, I want you again to look at your own natal chart, and I want you to just find the sun. And I'm going to open this webinar. Here's the sun. The sun looks like a circle with a dot in it. Okay. And there's the sun. And this is the sign that it's in, this little arrow. So this is the sun in Sagittarius. And you've all been given this reference guide about breaking down every single one of these positions. So when we're not on the call, you can absolutely go through your entire chart and you can say, oh, you can look up this glyph. Oh, this is Mercury. Oh, this is Scorpio. That means I have Mercury in Scorpio. Okay. So you can look at that. But right now, what I just want you to look at is, where is my sun landing? And I'm going to call up something else for you, because I want to show you, I want to look at the chart. I have a different, you have a different looking chart, and I just want to, here we go. So, for example, this is the chart that you guys have. Maury, that if you're on the call, this is your chart. And what I want you to notice is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, these are the astrological houses. And this is how you can count and put your sun in the correct house. So in this case, Maury's sun is in the 6th house, okay? And in the blank wheel I gave you, the houses are not listed. Oh, yes, they are. We're lucky. Yes, they are. Good, good, good. So I would go ahead, if I were Maury, and I'd put my sun in the 6th house. I just draw the sun. And if you want to draw the glyph of Capricorn, you draw the glyph in Capricorn. So there it is in the 6th house. Now, just by the by, obviously, Maury, as you're listening, Maury's 6th house is loaded. And so let's see what it means, first off, to say, well, what does it mean that my personality self is landing in a particular area of this circle, in a particular area of the heavens? See, the rising sign isn't landing anywhere, it's a point, but your sun is landing in a particular area of the heavens. So we're gonna briefly journey around the chart in terms of where did my sun choose to hang out? Because that is where your personality is shining. That is where you are choosing to do some pretty substantial work in your life. Okay. And here's what I'm going to call up. I have this sheet of paper. And later, if you want, I can send you copies of this. This comes from a book by Elizabeth Rose Campbell, Intuitive Astrology, which I really like. And it's a very simple way of looking at the houses, and it allows us to go through with some, quickness, again, my airy self. So if your sun is in the 1st house, you announce your identity. This first area of the heavens has everything to do with you walking through a door. So if your sun is in the 1st house, it has an Aries flavor, because, and listen carefully, because Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, is also connected with the 1st house of the chart. So it has an Aries feeling. It has a I am feeling. So regardless of what sign your sun is in, just know for now that if your sun is in the first house, your personality is out there. You are seen. The sun is seen. So the sun is hanging out where you announce your identity. And you might even want to write these into the blank chart if you like. The second house is where you learn to pay your own way. And I like this phrase because in the second house, we usually talk about money and resources and values and what you value, but it's a house of self worth. So if your sun is in the second house, you better believe that you have to learn about your own self worth and you have to value yourself before the money starts coming in, and you learn to pay your own way because you start to value who you are, because you recognize the incredible resource that you are. Okay. So if the sun is in the second house, you're also it's the house ruled by Taurus. So you're interested in manifesting, you're interested in worth, you're interested in value, you're interested in beauty, you're interested in self-worth. So it's, this is so simple, but it's so profound where your sun is choosing to hang out. And you learn a lot about yourself just based on this. And a lot of compassion comes in just based on this. Gosh, I'm here to learn to pay my own way. And I'm learning to pay my own way through a journey of self-worth. Okay. If your sun is in the third house, you learn to trust your own eyes and find your own voice. I say the third house is the house of your message. What is it you have been given to say? If it's in the third house, you have something to say, you have something to write, you have something to communicate, you have something to exchange. It's a house of curiosity. A lot of people with third house suns are teachers or lifelong learners. A lot of them are teachers in early education because the third house rules early education. But it has to do with having something to say, having something to write. It is your message. The fourth house has to do with your home. In your fourth house, you create home, you create family, you create foundation, you create a lighted house. So if your sun is in the fourth house, you want family, home, foundation. At a spiritual level, the fourth house has to do with a spiritual home. It has to do with your ashram. It has to do with your, your spiritual family. But if the sun is in the fourth house, you could also have the tendency to just want to stay at home, or your home is the place where you find most replenishment. The fourth house also has to do with your mother. So the sun there could have a lot to do with a focus on the relationship with the mother, but it really has to do with feeling and nourishment and bringing people into your home. If the sun is shining, that area is fundamentally important to you. Okay. If the sun is in your fifth house, you play. And by the way, you're looking at your own chart right now, but imagine if you were looking at the chart of your lover, of your family, of your children. Imagine what you start to learn just by doing that. And you can get free charts online. It's like, it's beautiful. You can start to just get a sense of where the sun wants to shine. For me, the sun wants to shine in the ninth house of teaching, right? So I know a lot about myself just based on that placement. All right. So if the sun is in the fifth house, you play. Okay. And play is the child, is expression, is the heart, is daring to express the self. It's got a joy of life about it. It's the full expression of self. So if the sun is in the fifth house, you better believe, children are what you give birth to, what you create. All of that is so important. You must shine forth if the sun is in your fifth house. You're on a stage. If the sun is in your sixth house, you get back to work day to day and improve the quality of life for others. That sounds a little but if the sun is in your sixth house, yeah, you're a worker and you're a refiner and you're a devotee, and you improve at the quality of life, health wise, physical, emotional, and mental for people. I mean, look at Maury's chart, like all 6 planets in that house. You better believe there's something about refinement, health, service, attention to detail, all of that. And she's got the sun in Capricorn, so she's going to be very serious about it as well. She's going to be very purposeful about it. See, so as you start to figure out where the sun is, like what area it's playing in, you also get to say, well, how is it playing? How is it shining? It's shining purposefully. That's a Capricorn word. Or if it's in Sagittarius, it's shining with a lot of enthusiasm, right? So the sign that it's in starts to be like an adverb or an adjective defining like how it's shining. All right. I know I'm giving you so much right now, and just I want you to just keep breathing and know that you can go back and listen and know that there's so much more to come too. But just see how it feels. In the seventh house, you partner with a significant other. So if your sun is in the seventh house, yes, you better believe that marriage and partnership and relationship is fundamental for you. It's very important. Um, it's about the other. It's about how you meet the world. When we go above the horizon, you know, which this is below the horizon and above the horizon. When we go above the horizon, it starts to be ourself in public, you know. So if the sun is in the bottom 6 houses, it has a lot to do more to do personally. And if the sun is in the top 6 houses, it has a lot to do more publicly. And that's a gross generalization, but it's also important to just consider. So the seventh house, there's a huge focus on relationships. In the eighth house, I like this. You explore what is unseen. The eighth house, I always say glibly put, is the house of sex, death, and taxes. It's exploring what is taboo. It's exploring what most people don't want to look at. It's exploring the darkness. And if you dare to explore the darkness, you are rewarded. If you dare to dive into yourself, to the heart of the matter, you are rewarded. So if your sun is in the eighth house, you could be a healer, you could be a therapist, you could be a transformer. If, you know, by the way, if the sun is in the seventh house, you could be a lawyer because it has so much to do with fairness and equality too. It has a lot to do with right relationships. So eighth house, you could be, you know, you could be a therapist. You could be also, you know, eighth house has a lot to do with financial things as well. So there can be a focus on wealth quite tangibly and physically and also metaphorically, like what diving in for the wealth. I actually had somebody recently who had a loaded eighth house that was interested in like going into the earth, mining, you know, and that was a very strong eighth house. Ninth house, you discover worldly wisdom. Okay. The ninth house is the house of the teacher. The ninth house is the house of adventure. If you have the sun in the ninth house, you are an explorer, you are an adventurer, you are a teacher, you are an inspirer, you are an educator, you are a traveler. And you know, you'll probably want to walk a spiritual path. You could also, you know, at another level, you could have a total like fundamentalist with the sun in the ninth house because it's this is my way, this is the only way. See, all of these can be distorted. All of these can be, um, yeah, all of these can be distorted. But the sun in the ninth house, at its best, wants to be a visionary and wants to explore and wants to travel and wants to broaden one's perspective and wants worldly wisdom, which you can only gain by exploring the world. Okay. If your sun is in the 10th house, you create your public reputation and career path. So if your sun is shining there, you better believe career is important. And it might be that you haven't found the career you're meant to do, but it's important. And generally, when people have the sun in the 10th house, I don't worry about them career wise because they tend to have such a focus there and such a light there that unless there are other planets there that are causing a lot of stress, it tends to shine a light. You know, the sun is up at the top of the chart. So the 10th house has so much to do with accomplishment and what you want to do career wise in the world. And whatever sign your sun is in, so you know, if it's you're an Aries sun in the 10th house, your career then would have an Aries quality. Like you have to do something daring, you have to be shot out of a cannon, you have to, you know, you might want to lead the way, you might want to be a leader because Aries has so much to do with leadership. Whereas if your sun were in Pisces in the 10th house, then the qualities of saving and redeeming and the imagination, right, start to take hold, and they become the quality of Pisces affects what you're meant to do in the world. So you're meant to be a dreamer, a public dreamer. I mean, I have a friend who is, interested in filmmaking, and she's got a strong Pisces 10th house, and it's like that makes sense. Pisces rules film, and Pisces and filmmakers are the public dreamers, right? So interesting. In the 11th house, if your sun is in the 11th house, this is the house of community. And it's also the house of your hopes and dreams and aspirations. And you recognize your long term goals in that house. And it's all about community and friendship and innovation and wanting to do it differently. So if your sun is in the 11th house, you want to build a community based on your values, um, based on your hopes and dreams and visions. And you want to be a server. You want to distribute what you have to give. It's interesting. The 11th house rules the internet. So if you have a loaded 11th house, and, you have an online business, that's perfect, right? If you have strong 11th house, the internet is very potent in that house because it connects us. It's the World Wide Web. It connects, it makes the world family, which the 11th house is very interested in. In the 12th house, I like this, you answer the spirit call. The 12th house is the house of sanctuary, okay? The 12th house is the house. It's interesting because if your sun is in the 12th house, again, I could go through every single one of these houses and give you sort of the wretchedness of the house and give you the highest of the house. I've been giving you the highest aspects of the house. But let me just say about the 12th house that it's a house of such extremes, because if the sun is in the 12th house, there is a desire, sometimes to be very much behind the scenes, to be invisible. And it rules public institutions that are sort of behind the scenes. So on one hand, it could rule asylums and prisons and, dungeons. And on another hand, it rules temples and sanctuaries and pristine places where you can really connect with source. So you always, as an astrologer, when a client comes in, I also always have to feel into where they're at. Is the sun in the 12th house, and are they feeling like an invisible victim? Are they addicted? Are they, feeling hopeless with this and not seen? Or are they doing work behind the scenes for the good of all? Or are they in transition? Most of us are in transition. Most of us are not in the wretchedness or in the most exaltation. We're dancing around the spiral. Yeah. So it's very important to feel into, um, not to feel into, just to know where your sun is landing. And I just want to give you little tiny phrases, and they're actually from the handout I gave you, the exoteric and esoteric meaning of the houses. But just, you could even write this in. So the first house is I am. The second house is I have. The third house is I think. The fourth house is I feel. The fifth house is I show. The sixth house is I discriminate, right? The seventh house is I relate. The eighth house is I penetrate, I detach, I sacrifice. The ninth house is I envision. The 10th house is I climb. The 11th house is I serve. And the 12th house is I save. So, a lot of work astrologically, as we're starting to learn it, is about your own intuition, so you start to feel into what it means to have a sun shining in the realm of I feel. That's fundamental to the personality. What do I feel? Now, I just want to show you, I'll just show you a couple of examples. I'm just going to grab some of the people that are here, and I blocked out your your birth info and your last name just in case you didn't want to be exposed. But for example, Pascal, who is on the line, this is very interesting because this is a case of the sun and rising sign being in the same sign, okay? But her sun is in the 12th house. It is in this area that we were just talking about. So this is a profoundly sensitive placement. So if I look at the sun in the 12th house, first of all, I say, well, what does she want to do? Here's the sun shining behind the scenes. Well, what does she want to do behind the scenes? She wants to feed, to nourish, to care for, to embrace, to build a house of light. So this is all water. This is hugely inclusive and hugely all of these this placement together is so much. But I'm going to try to isolate and say, you know, the sun here in the 12th house. I'll just do this simply. What does she want to do behind the scenes? What does she want to do in her sanctuary? She wants to build a house of light, invite others in. She wants to nourish. She wants to secure a strong foundation. She wants to build home and family. See, that's where I'm looking at the Cancer there. So how is she going to do it? How is she going to shine behind the scenes, feelingly, sensitively? The danger here would be to hide one's uh, pain, to hide one's wounds, because the sun would hide in the 12th house and Cancer would hold on to its wounds. But it needs to open the heart and open the feeling life out to embrace others. So that's one example. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. All right. I don't even, let's do, okay, Adele. Adele in New Zealand. Um, Here is an example, and this is interesting, and some of you will have this to be the case. Your sun, here she is. She's an adventurer. She's a traveler. She's a worldly wisdom. She's a teacher. I don't know I actually don't know Adele or Pascal, but this is just from looking at the chart without talking to them. But a visionary, a traveler, a teacher, and yet it's also in the sign of Sagittarius, which is the sign connected to the ninth house. You see, so every house is connected to a sign: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo. And here she's got a double whammy, and some of you will have this, where the sun in Sagittarius is in the Sagittarius house. So how is she going to travel the world? With great enthusiasm, with great goal orientation, with great freedom. Don't pin me down. With great joyous, adventuresome spirit. And, so just to give you an example of how I might start to combine these, here she is an Aries rising. So she's here to be a pioneer. She's here to dare, to lead, to initiate. How might she do that? She might do that through her world travels, through her inspiration, through her teaching, through what she's seen in the world. She might, she could initiate something in foreign lands. I mean, that's the kind of energy when you start to say, well, I'm here to launch, to initiate, to dare. That's what I'm here to build in. And I have this boundless Sagittarian quality of adventure and aspiration and enthusiasm. Yeah. We're starting to get this a tiny bit. Let's look at one more. Monica. Here we have Monica, Sweden. Hello, Monica. So here we have, this is interesting. Here we have the sun in the fourth house. So the fourth house, remember, is home, but it's also the spiritual home. It's also the ashram. It's also your spiritual foundation. So on one hand, with Monica, we have the sun in the fourth house, which is saying, I feel, I root, I secure, I build a home, I build a base. She could build a spiritual center here, And how is she going to do that? In the most Aquarian way. She's going to do that with a spirit of collaboration, with a spirit of group activity, with a spirit of forward thinking, with a spirit of innovation. Aquarius and the fourth house are very different, because the fourth house is much more about, on a certain level, like your own little home and your own little body and being safe. And Aquarius is much more like detached um, and and free and not turned in. So to have that combination is really interesting. So Mana could build a very alternative home, an alternative home base for what she wants to offer in the world. Okay, so Oh dear, my friends. I'm wanting to give you just some examples of this. Um, and let's do this. I am going to ask you now if there are. I see that I'm gonna give a chance now for about 5 or 6 more minutes of questions based on that, because I'm sure some of you have questions um, around this. So let's see if you have a question. Um, Raise your hand. Sorry, I'm sort of trying to follow a bunch of different things here. Nancy, we never got to you, so be sure, because I can't. I don't. I'm going to try again. See if it makes any difference. Nope. You're going to have to ask me afterwards. Okay. Um, and if you've just typed in a question, go ahead and raise your hand, because that's easier for me than reading. Um, and if you don't, that's okay too, my dears. But I want to give you a chance. And sometimes, oh, here, I'm going to ask Carrie. Okay, Carrie, go ahead. What is your question?
Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Carrie.
Um, I'm wondering, I've got Taurus Sun in my ninth house with a Leo rising.
Yep, yeah. And you want to just
How are those interacting?
yeah. So good. This is just another example, right? So I just happen to have Carrie's chart ready as well. So this is very interesting. So let's again, if you have Leo rising, what you are trying to build into your being is a courageous, expressive self. You are here to be a heart that extends. You are here to lead with your heart. You are here to be a daring capital S self in the world. Now, here, Carrie, once again, has this ninth house sun. So the ninth house is the adventurer, the teacher, the expansive one. Like, what is it that you do, Carrie? Or, it's the coach, it's the, what's your work?
My primary work is marketing, but I'm transitioning to an actress writer.
Okay, great. So actress writer is right in tune with Leo rising, right? Because it's the willingness to stand and be seen in your gift. But your sun in the ninth house would give you the capacity to take risks, but because you're a Taurus, they would be, I would say to you, you would take calculated risks, or you would be very careful, or you would move with great rhythm and care in these big steps that you would take. The other thing for you all to know is that Taurus and Sagittarius, and I'm talking about Sagittarius because of the ninth house, they're both signs of vision. They're both signs of sight. They're both signs of seeing into the future. So, um, in your case, you would want to channel all that Leo energy into whatever would uplift, inspire in a very practical way. And there's a lot of fire here for you. There's a lot of passion and fire here for you. And there's a lot else in the chart that we could go into, but the fact is you have the enthusiasm of a ninth house sun, you have the expression of Leo rising, and you have the practicality of a Taurus sun. Okay, that's a little taste.
Yes.
Okay, but
Thank you.
to be continued. Okay. Good. So wow, we have 3 minutes to go. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say to you, dear friends, because you've been wonderful, and you've been here for 2 hours, and I meant to get us up on our feet and at least stretch. I hope you did so. But please feel free to ask me questions after the webinar. Um, just write to me, and I will send brief answers back. But I also really want you to know this. Starting the second week of January, I am teaching a 10-week class. We'll meet on Tuesday afternoons. It'll be like 5:30 to 7. It's going to be so much fun. Every week we're going to go into one of the planets deeply and fully and compassionately and joyously. And we're going to dive in, and we're going to learn specifically each placement in your chart, because obviously today we got the sun and the rising sign. And there's so many other placements. And we're going to meet for 10 weeks. if you want to join in the next 3 days because you were on this call, I'll give you $25 off. Hurrah. So I will send you that link. I would love to have you with me. I think that we can learn a tremendous amount online, particularly now that we can be so interactive. And I don't know how it was working with you to see the video, but um, I like that, and I like you being able to see the screen and all of that. So I will send a follow up for sure, letting you know about that and letting you know about the retreats that I do twice a year in Ojai, where we get on our feet and we work with astrology, and it's for women at this point, although I promise to do one for men soon. But we get on our feet and embody our charts and work with poetry, and it's gorgeous. So I invite you to explore my website and look at some of that as well. But mostly, I'd love to have you guys on this next journey. And you obviously don't have to be in the class at the time. I will send recordings, but it helps because I'll look at your chart, um, and there'll be lots of personal attention. Okay. So I do want to just read you as a quiet closing. I do want to read you the last 2 stanzas of a John O'Donohue poem about compassion and about how to walk in the world together. And the idea with astrology is, if we know who we are, we'll know what to do. And as we come to know ourselves, we come to know how to take more beautiful and conscious steps in the world. So John O'Donohue says this. It's called a morning offering. May my mind come alive today to the invisible geography that invites me to new frontiers, to break the dead shell of yesterdays, to risk being disturbed and changed. May I have the courage today to live the life that I would love, to postpone my dream no longer, but do at last what I came here for, and waste my heart on fear no more. And, we covered just a little today, but if you know your rising sign, if you know your sun, you have fuel to do what you came here to do and to waste your heart no more on fear. And I thank you deeply for being with me. And I look forward to our connection. And don't hesitate to be in touch, and go explore HeidiRose.com. And I'm sending you big, big love. Thanks for being here. And we will totally be in touch. Take care.